There are many financial tools out there that can help you in many different aspects of your personal finances. But the 5 tools that I'm going to share with you in this video are perhaps the ones that can have the biggest impact. At the same time that they are actually very easy to start using, and they can have the biggest impact probably because of their simplicity, because they lay out very strong foundations in many aspects of your personal finances. Let's start with the first one right away. So the first of these tools is this spreadsheet that I have created myself that you can grab for free in the description down below. Just make sure that you go over to the file menu and that you create your own copy so you can edit it. But this Google Sheet right here that you can of course use as an Excel file as well, I have dubbed the Budget Lite. So I have talked in the past about how I am lousy following a budget, and I hate creating budgets. I don't stick to them, so budgets don't really work for me. At least not the traditional budget or the one that you have to track every single one of your expenses. But with this light version of a budget, I can actually be sure that month after month, I know where my money is going, and I know that I am saving up enough money for my own financial goals. The reason why this works for me is because it is very simple to follow. All I do is, for example, group all of my food expenses into one, and this is the amount of money that I want to spend on food this month, and I write it down here. It doesn't matter if I use some of these at restaurants or in groceries or so on. I just budget it right here, and I know in the first section of this spreadsheet that these expenses I do month after month. But also, if I happen to make larger purchases, that I am borrowing money through my credit card or something, and maybe I do some purchases with a 0% APY for 3 months or 6 months and so on, I can easily track those expenses in here. And if I have a couple of credit cards, for example, I can start to track all of those extra expenses that I am doing with those credit cards in addition to the regular expenses that I may have. And so having this very simple tracker without having to actually specify expense by expense, I can easily in this row down below notice that on April I am going to have to spend $5,882. And if I know that my income for April is going to be $6,000, I know that I am on a tightrope in here, that I have very little wiggle room to play with, so I must be very careful next month. This is an amazing tool that again you can grab down below entirely for free. Just have to make your own copy of this Google Sheet that I truly believe can create a very strong foundation for your finances. Once you start noticing where your money is going and you start to feel control of your expenses, the rest can come a lot easier. Now, the second tool is actually a service by Equifax, although you could use any other credit bureau if you prefer, but it is about receiving alerts on any change in your credit history. Knowing if there are any changes in your credit history is very important because one, you may notice that there are some changes that don't belong to you. Maybe someone has signed up for a new credit card and there was some mistake at the bank or somewhere, and that credit card is added to your history. But now you depend on that other person paying their credit card correctly. If they don't, they start damaging your own credit history. That is a mistake that has to be solved as soon as possible. On the other hand, it could happen that someone checks your credit history without your permission. That should not happen, and if you start to get alerts about that, it is going to be very helpful. What's more, with these same services, you can start to limit access to your credit history. So only when you are actually looking for a new credit, you can allow access back. But in the meantime, no one could actually access that credit history. So again, Equifax is one of the better options out there that has these 3 different plans. Honestly, the cheapest one is more than enough because it allows you to get your credit report 3 times annually. And related to what we're talking about in this point about alerts, they have this 3 bureau credit file monitoring. So not only are they going to be monitoring Equifax themselves, but also Experian and TransUnion. And you will be able to know if there are any changes that you should pay attention to. And in addition to this, you could get, for example, automatic fraud alerts and that credit report lock that I was talking about. This is probably one of the most boring tools that you can add to your financial arsenal, but one that can actually have a great impact in your personal finances. Having this kind of service actually helped me a few years ago when there was a mistake in my credit history, and if I hadn't caught that on time, that would have created a whole ton of problems for me. My credit history would be damaged, access to credit would be limited, and the credit that I might actually have access to would be with very high interest rates. So making sure that I have these things under control, while boring at times, can have big impacts. The third tool that I want to talk about is this one right here that I also created myself. I have been working hard on improving my own finances for a while, so you can see how I come up with these tools to help myself quite a bit. This particular tool though, you can get for $5. I am charging $5 for this one because it took me a while to create it. I am going to leave the link down below. It's just a small form where you have to leave your email address and your name, pay the $5, you got it, your own copy. Create your own copy is also a Google Sheet file, but this one is quite interesting because it is about tracking your portfolio. So it starts by writing down your currency, be it United States dollars, Australian dollars, euros, Great Britain pounds, and so on. Whatever currency that you use, you can write it down here. And by the way, you actually have the instructions written down in here, but the next thing that you will have to do is down below, set the target asset allocation for your portfolio. Essentially, an investment plan that you want to follow. Say, for instance, that you want to invest 70% in US stocks, 20% in real estate, and 10% in bonds, for example. Having this plan is great, but following can be a little bit tricky because naturally, day after day, the value of our investments can change. So the next time that we make an investment, we should make it in a very specific way so that we stick to that plan, that 70% of US stocks, 20% real estate, 10% bonds. That is exactly where this tool comes in, because after setting that target asset allocation or that plan, what percentage I want to invest in a particular section, you can navigate down here to the My Portfolio sheet and start to write down all of your expenses, assign them to a specific section, one of the sections that you set up here in the dashboard, and write down the number of stocks that you currently have invested for this particular investment. So in this example that I have right here, this person wants to invest 15% in developed market stocks, but they are currently at 12.77, a little bit below. So what they would do is write over here how much they want to invest now, in addition to the current value of their portfolio. And this tool is going to let them know exactly where to put that money, those $500 in this example, so that little by little, they go back to the plan that they established before. So for example, right now, it is saying that from the $500, they should use almost half of it in developed market stocks so that the percentage increases from 12.77 to 13.8, bringing it a little bit closer to that 15% that is a target allocation. Now, while this tool seems simple enough, I can tell you that before I created this one, it used to take me about 20 to 25 minutes every month to know where I should put my money on. That doesn't sound like a lot, but now with this tool, it literally takes me 1 second. Literally, all I have to do is write down how much money I want to invest. Because previously I had to phone one of my brokers who doesn't have an internet site. Weirdly enough, I had to log into one of my other brokers' site and write down all of my investments and the current value, because again, the value changes all the time. Once I had that, I made the math, I put the money where I needed to, but I did this by eye. I didn't actually do a very specific math. This is making everything so precise and so much faster. So again, a tool that for everyone that is following a plan when investing month after month is going to be incredibly useful. Again, $5 in the description down below. Now, what happens if you don't actually have a plan? This tool is useless if you don't actually have a plan that you want to follow. To create this plan, the fourth tool in this video is going to be incredibly useful. And I am referring to this investor questionnaire from Vanguard. So Vanguard is the second largest money management company in the world, just behind BlackRock. They manage trillions of dollars, and they have created this 11-question questionnaire to understand exactly where you should be investing. So everyone should invest a little bit differently, mainly because of how they would behave in certain scenarios and the fear or greed they may feel, and of course the objectives of their own investment. All of this is taken into account into this questionnaire. So for example, if you are investing in the short term, Vanguard is going to suggest that you invest in something safe, like bonds, in a much bigger allocation than, say, stocks. And the other way around, if you're investing for the long term and you need that money to last for a long time in the future, and if the value of your investments starts to drop, you wouldn't really care, you would just stick to the plan, then you should invest a much bigger allocation into stocks, a much smaller one into bonds. By the end of these 11 questions, Vanguard is going to tell you specifically what amount of money you should destine towards stocks and what amount you should invest in bonds. So say the answer is for you to invest 70% of stocks, 30% of bonds, you could actually come back to this tool and notice that indeed, even this example is investing in that way. So this 70% is investing, okay, not exclusively in stocks, but let's say variable rate investments, so stocks and real estate. And the remaining 30% is invested in bonds, divided in 15% traditional bonds, 15% inflation protected bonds, for example, treasury inflation protected securities. In any case, whatever that Vanguard questionnaire tells you to do, you could do it using this tool as well. Now, the final tool, the fifth tool that I want to talk about is one that is a little bit scary, to be honest, because it is this life expectancy calculator that this guy, Thomas Perls, MD, created a few years ago. You can notice that the interface looks quite ugly, quite outdated, but there is a lot of research behind this longer questionnaire. It is going to take you about 5 to 7 minutes to answer, but it is going to consider a lot of things. It is going to consider your own history with diseases or diseases that your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents may have, your current sleeping habits, exercise habits, nutritional habits, and so on. All of this to take into account a lot of information to tell you when are you going to die. So for example, for me, I am 30 years old. I answered with my current habits and my medical history and so on, and it told me that I am going to live about 84 years. So I have 54 years remaining, which is granted a lot of time still, but having a very specific number of how many years you have left is going to help you in many different ways, of course. If you're a little bit curious, you may find that if only you change your habits a little bit to the better, you may add 2 or 4 or 6 years to your life expectancy. But also talking about finance, it's going to help you understand how many years your retirement savings should last. So for example, if you were planning on retiring at 67 and it says that you're going to die at 87, your retirement savings should last you for 20 years. That's a lot of time. So you may start to understand a bit more about the importance of saving from a very early age, but also about investing to start leveraging compound interest. And not only that, in a little bit more of a romantic sense, to start understanding that life is very limited, that we are only here for a little while, and we may as well in that time enjoy our lives. So not only focus on personal finances or the financial mathematical sense of it, but also on the behavioral and psychological part of personal finances. So to me, having this number so specifically shown to me really changed the way I've been looking at my finances. So I've been working a lot more, not only on saving money and make sure that I have enough money in the future, but also to make sure that I spend now responsibly. So for example, I am 30 years old, I already mentioned, I should really put a lot of effort into spending my money on ways that I know I won't be able to spend my money in the future. At 30 years old, I can still do a lot of things that I won't be able to do at 60 or at 70. Setting up those priorities is one of the benefits of using this last tool. But anyway, there you have it, these 5 incredibly useful tools, at least in my opinion, that you can start to implement into your own lives to improve your personal finances and even more, as you can see with this one, ranging again from the tool that can help you know where your money is going to the tool that can help you know when you're going to die. So hopefully this video has been useful. If it was, please consider subscribing and sharing this video with everyone, and just liking it would be enough. I'll catch you in the next one.